What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm here with Ant and the Black Knight once again, and we're here to hear about Ant's trip up the Cape as to how it all went and how our ECDS shocks performed. Ant, how was the trip, mate? It looked absolutely awesome.
Mate, it was one of those trips that I'll never forget. Going to Cape York really is one of those pilgrimage journeys that I think everyone must do to get to the tip. And if you're an off-roader, you're obviously going to choose a route, a course that's going to take in a few, of the iconic tracks to make that trip have more meaning. So the tracks that we did were the old coach road, definitely one of the most dangerous tracks in Cape York. Then we went to the OTT, everyone knows it. It didn't let us down, didn't disappoint. And the last track was Frenchman's Track, which has got the two famous river crossings on it, the Wenlock and the Pasco. So yeah, mate, it was brilliant.
Sounded absolutely awesome, mate. So now we just want to hear on how those ECDS shocks performed on all those different terrains.
Well, it's funny you should ask. Obviously, these were a new fitting on the vehicle prior to me leaving, and there was some conversation about, we're sort of testing them for touring vehicles. Well, I disagree. I think these ECDS shocks are meant for every application. Certainly, the travel that I got in these shocks off-road was incredible. The convenience that I had as the driver to adjust the shocks on the fly. So for example, we'd be sailing down the PDR and there's sealed sections and there's corrugated sections. And these are like, you'd have 2K one, 2K another, and you keep changing between the two. So it's very handy just to say, okay, I'm just going to dial the shocks right down now. And then you sail on through the corrugations, you get off that and you dial them up a bit, or not, as the case may be. All I can say is they outperform my expectations. That
is awesome to hear, mate, awesome to hear.
Yeah.
So mate, did you have a setting that you selected for highway driving as well as off-road driving that you really stuck to, or was it more of a bit of a chop and change?
That's a good question. So basically, my style is all in or all out.
Yep.
So for the road, I had it dialed up max.
Yep.
And then off-road, all the way soft.
Yep.
Now, I started to play around with that a little bit, and then I went, say, setting of 9 in the front and 12 in the rear at times, and that seems to be working well. That's what I've got it set on now.
Yep.
But initially, I was just like, let's just get the maximum sensations for what the differences feel like. Yeah.
Definitely. So with the 5 modes, which did you try to stick to, or did you chop and change between our 5 modes of 1 to 5 and 1 to 100?
Yeah, another good question. So basically, because the range in the dampening of these shocks is the same whether you're in mode 5 or mode 1, I sort of like to have the 16 different positions as opposed to the 100 different positions. So, I could turn it a little bit and I'd get to 7, 8, 9, 10, 16 if I wanted to. Because when you're on the fly and you're cruising down and you've got some corrugations coming out, I don't want to be dialing that thing to get to 100.
Yeah.
I just want to go, and get it straight there straight away. But that just suits me. There's obviously people out there who like that finesse of dialing things in, and that's available in this shock dampening system controller as well. So
that's essentially the whole reason behind it. Is some people, like myself, I like to feel big changes. So a small amount of adjustment on the dial that can make my car handle very differently is it what I really like to see. And other people, they want to get that fine-tuned, perfect ride. Yeah. So that 1 to 100 is a massive range there to get that perfect ride in that vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get a little fitting and put it on a drill, just like get it up to 100, mate. But nah, the 16 was good for me.
So Matt, how did you find that these shocks and that were easy to dial in whilst driving, with obviously keeping that eye contact on the road and still making those adjustments whilst driving?
Well, yeah, it's, adjusting it's super convenient because literally, there's my field of vision and it's literally right here. So there's only 2 dials on it. So, you get used to pretty quick what's rear and what's front. And the LED pops up as soon as you start turning the dial. So it's no more difficult than changing the channel in this Tesla.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, it's good to hear. So obviously, mate, you spent a bit of time on corrugated roads up north. How did you feel the shocks performed, and did they stay cool and keep the car handling correct along those longer roads?
Well, I mean, I didn't have a temperature gauge stuck in them, so I'm going to assume that they did get pretty warm at one point. I did put my hand on them and they were warm, but in terms of handling, still perfect. I mean, you've got that 2.5-inch remote res canister there, as well as the 2.5 bore in the shock itself, so there's plenty of juice there to keep it flowing around and cool. So in terms of shock fade, I didn't notice any change in handling. So as far as my experience was concerned, no drama.
Perfect. Awesome. That's exactly what we want to hear, mate. We want to make sure they're handling exactly what people are going to throw these shocks at, being that we have marketed them more towards the touring-based driving. That's exactly the kind of test we needed.
Yeah, that's it. As I said before, I think, touring-based drivers, if you're thinking of corrugations and that sort of thing, yeah, they'll be great for that because you can just dial them up and down. So great for that application. But man, look at the tracks we did. Yeah. Old Coach Road, old Tally track, we're talking some gnarly, articulation and flexion that needs to happen. So they were perfect for that too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, good all-rounder.
So with all those fun tracks you were driving up there, what is the standout moment on this trip that really gave you a bit of a fright or got the blood flowing, mate?
Well, it's hard to narrow it down, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, the further I am away from home, the more conscientious and considerate of my geographical isolation I am. I don't like just sending it for the sake of it or and having a drama up there. I've been airlifted out of Cape York once before, and it's not a fun time. But there was one time on the old Coach Road, and I sort of overestimated my my ability to track the vehicle up this really steep incline. So I had a spotter at the top, and he was like, yep, come up. And I think he was expecting me to creep up. But I was like, I'll just send it up because there's one wheel here, then there was a massive rut, and another wheel here on top of it, and then a massive rut. But at some point it sort of swapped, and I dropped the rear wheel into it, and it reared up, and it was all out. So I was out of control there massively. But yeah, got through it.
all part of the fun on the Cape
trip.
trip.
Had to change my underwear, after that one, but that's four-wheel driving.
That's exactly right. So mate, how did you find the responsiveness of the adjusting? Did you feel that it took a bit of a delay to really change the handling, or would you feel it was more of an instant on-the-spot change?
Oh look, definitely the latter. It was instant, so effectively you've got the two dials there, for the rear and the front shocks. I just used to go think, whatever it was, and the change in ride quality from either hard to soft was instantly palpable. So no drama with delay. You weren't sitting there going, did that change? And as I said, I use the 0 to 16 mode, and I can turn quite a few levels with one twist. You can notice it.
That's perfect, and that's why we use you as our, I guess you could say, guinea pig to take it straight to the top end and give it an absolute hiding, so we know we could get the proper answers and see how these shocks perform in the worst conditions. So as an off-the-shelf product that we didn't throw any sort of tricks and traits at, how did you feel that the valving was for your vehicle when it was nice and loaded up heading up north?
Well, the valving for these shocks, I understand it to be specific for the vehicles that they go on, and that's why I come to Superior for these shocks. So look, handling, going around corners, there was no massive body roll, and then off-road it was articulating. It had the best of both worlds. So I think the valving, whatever you guys have done for that, your R&D team, whatever they do, got it on the head.
Absolutely perfect, mate. It's good to hear, and that's what our plan is for these vehicles. Is we do a lot of R&D work, especially with the 70 series. We do a massive amount. It's coil conversions, leaf sprung.
You can tell.
So yeah. we can take a tune and put it in that shock and know as an off the shelf, it's going to suit a lot of people's different diverse vehicles, diverse use. So we can make sure that those ranges of adjustability in that shock can perform well in any condition for anyone's needs.
Yeah, look, I'm no shock expert. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that if this shock has been valved specifically for this vehicle, then maybe it's going to ride better than one that doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So mate, one of the largest asked questions we had was how are the electronics going to fare in really harsh conditions? Obviously, you've just taken on probably Australia's harshest. So how did you feel it went? Did you have any problems with the electronic system or any shock issues?
That's a good question. It's certainly a reasonable concern for some people to think, there's a wire going in there. What if the wire gets pulled out? He's going through water and mud and shit. But ultimately, well, Other stuff did have problems. One or two things I won't mention, but the shocks didn't have a problem. So I haven't had a good look about how you've wired them up and where you've run them and that sort of thing and how they're plugged in. But there were certainly no issues with all the deep water crossings on the old tally track. And of course the two major water crossings on Frenchman's, the Wenlock and Pasco River. So all I can say is based on my personal experience, I didn't have an issue.
That's awesome. That's exactly what we wanted to hear, just to show people that this isn't just going to be something that's a bit of a look and it will fail. Because yeah, like taking on some of those conditions and some of them water crossings, everyone thinks electronics are going to go wrong, and to hear that nothing happened is just awesome.
Certainly, and you know, as I say, it's a relative concern, but I'm quite confident, based on my experience, recommending these shocks for anyone who wants to do water crossings, mud crossings, or whatever. So yeah, go for it.
So that is all the questions we have for you today, mate. So we're going to let you hit the road. You guys don't forget to follow Ant on Black Knight Offroad on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all of his adventures. And if you want to hear anything more on ECDS, don't forget to jump into the comments below, give us a like and subscribe.